This is Tracey from GiftBasketappeal, and today we're going to be making a beautiful basket. It's actually a basket for someone's retirement. And before we get started, it's always good to know maybe something about that person that you're making a basket for. I know that this person happens to like M&Ms, they like cookies, chocolate type items, they like candy, they like candles, and they like lotions. So I pulled together some items that I thought they might like. And I found out that this person is a dog lover. So I was actually lucky enough to find a cup that says dog lover. So let's get started. Let's talk about the basket. For this particular gift basket, I'm using a basket that has more depth to it. So it's going to be a lot deeper. Let me just turn it to you so you can see, than a basket that I would normally use. I think one of the challenges of using or selecting your basket is that you want to try to make sure that all of your items fit in the basket. So if you buy a basket that's too large and you don't have many items, the basket might not be full enough. Or if you buy a basket that's too small and you have too many items. So you just have to kind of fit everything in first to see if everything will fit, and then kind of gauge. I think that's one of my challenges when I'm making a basket. I've kind of got it figured out now that I've made a whole bunch of baskets, but just make sure your items can fit inside the basket. I like to work with baskets that actually have a handle, because when I'm wrapping it up, and you'll see later on when I'm wrapping it up, it gives the cellophane something to sit on top of. So you'll see that it gives more height to the basket also when you're wrapping it. The only thing is if you have products that are really high, you have to make sure that you work around this handle. So that's one of the other things to look out for. But in particularly, for me personally, I like to use baskets that have the handle on them. There are baskets without the handle. There's just so much. There's also baskets with the handle coming around this way. So you just have to kind of pick and choose exactly what type of basket would be suitable for your gift. Now we're going to start filling in the basket. What I normally do first is I like to recycle bags, so I'll fill this with bags sometimes, but today I actually have some kind of gift wrap paper that I'm going to stuff this with, and the tissue that you would use inside of gift bags, the tissue, and we're just going to kind of roll it up a little bit. And the reason why I'm doing this, it looks nice and decorative, and it's going to give my items more height. Because when I put my items into the basket, I want them to be a little bit higher than normal so that you can see the colors in the basket. So because this is not rehearsed, just bear with me as I go ahead and get these things to fit in here strategically. And you might have to work it a little bit to get everything positioned the way you want all the items to be positioned a certain way. So I just happen to have several pieces of this tissue, and it's got little sparkly things on it too, so it's going to look really nice. Now for the fun part, assembling the basket. This is probably one of the most challenging parts, because now you have to kind of assemble your products inside the basket strategically so that it looks good. So I like to start, kind of work from the center and then work my way out. So I've got my larger items, and I figure I put the larger items in the center and then strategically kind of work in my other items. Some of the taller items in the middle to build height. Go ahead and put the tea in there. And I know the person's a dog lover, so it'd be nice if I could display the cup kind of right up front here. Okay, so we got that there. And I've got another box of tea because this person loves tea. Okay, I know the person loves flavored water. So I'm going to put those in there. And you notice this is going to be a cute basket because it's got lots of color. And the bow I selected has lots of color as well. So I like the handle because it helps kind of keep my stuff in place. Some people use double-sided tape, especially if they're going to be shipping the basket and the basket's going to have a lot of movement. This one is not, so I'm actually going to, I don't need the double-sided tape, but everything is going to fit snugly inside the basket. Got candies, those in here. And it looks like everything is going to fit, and that's great. Got lotion. I have space in the back here. And I haven't even gotten to really look at my basket yet. I may need to adjust some things depending on how it looks. Right. And I've got one more thing to fit in this basket. So I'm just going to slip those in here. Okay, so now got everything just about strategically placed. And I want that cup to be up front because I want the person to see that, you know, that the time was taken into, oh my goodness, they got me a cup about dogs and they know I love dogs. So I'm going to just turn the basket now so you can actually see what it looks like. And so it looks pretty good. And you can still go ahead and adjust things if you want to. Looking from this angle, I'm going to kind of turn my cookies that way. And I'm going to do something that I normally like to do when I'm making my basket. I want to give it some color. And what I do is I use shred. And I started using sparkly shred. I used to use the one that wasn't sparkly, but I really like the sparkly thread because shred because it gives it more color and it gives it a little bit of pizzazz. And I like this color because it also, again, it ties in with my bow. So I'm just taking the shred and just filling in some spaces here. Sometimes I use flowers, and you could do that too. I'll use the artificial flowers, and I'll strategically place that all around the basket. But today, we're going to use some sparkly shred to fill up the basket. And see, I'm going to try to just put some all around. So it looks kind of like a celebration, which it is. She's retiring. And now we've finished that part. Now here's one other thing you could do. Sometimes I'll take some of the gift paper and I'll kind of just fold it up a little bit and I'll stuff it in certain places around the basket. So I'm just taking this and I just ripped it in half and I'm just filling it in a little bit so it looks even more festive. And you can, I mean, sometimes you can get this for like 99 cents, or they have so many different colors. So if you really want to stick to a particular color scheme, you can use this and kind of stuff it in between. If you have some items that might be glass and you don't want them to break, this is a great way to put these close to your items that are made from glass. But I like the way it looks inside of the basket. And I think I have one hole here. I'm gonna actually put some in that little area right there too. So now our basket is coming together. It's starting to look very festive. And I'm gonna turn it around one more time so you can see. Got my sparkly stuff in there. Put a few more around the front here. And you can play with it. You can make your basket as fancy as you want or as plain as you want. You can play with different colors, and you'll see how when we start the bow, how the bow will look and tie in all the colors as well. So now it looks nice and full. I like the fact that the handle is here because it kind of positions everything. And so now we're going to move on to wrapping the gift basket. Now we're going to start to wrap up our basket using clear cellophane. I know there are some other cellophanes that have color to them. I like the clear because it gives a better presentation for this type of basket. The basket has enough color in it, so the cellophane I just used is going to be clear. So what we're going to do is, what I usually do is you need a large flat space, and I start to roll out enough cellophane so that I can actually put the basket in the center. So I think I've rolled this out enough. I can gauge it. This is a larger basket, has a lot of depth to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my basket and place it right in the middle here. And what I like to do is I like to take my cellophane, and for me, that is too short. I need enough where I have some sticking out when I start to wrap up my basket. So I like to have a large fan, and you'll see that later. I'll explain that later. So this is not enough. So what I'm going to have to do is roll out even more. So what I'm going to do is just move this up for a moment, roll this back, and position my basket to give it a little bit more. So let's look at it now. You may have to play with this for a little bit until you get it right. So now I do have enough cellophane coming up out of the top of my basket, and what I do is I take the top end, or the back part that's closest to me, and I bring it up at exactly the same height, and then I will cut. I like to have more cellophane than less. So I'm going to cut this out just kind of evenly, and cellophane is very delicate when you're cutting, so you have to be very careful. I'm just going to let it fall for now, and then I'll go back and neaten it up, but I'm just really concerned about the cut right now. That's what I measured it at for right now. And I'm cutting, better to cut more than less so that you have enough. Okay, so now I do have enough to actually wrap up my basket. So what I do is I start to gather everything up in the middle, close to the basket's handle. And this is why I like the handle, because it makes it easier for me when the cellophane has something to sit on top of, and it gives my basket more height. And you'll see later why I like to have my cellophane like this. So I'm just gathering it up right now. You got to be gentle with this cellophane. And I'm just gathering and pulling it through. I'm leaving a little bit out here. I'm going to actually end up folding this under and taping it. Some people like to do shrink wrap, and that's fine too. I like the way the cellophane looks without being shrink wrapped. So you notice now this is starting to fan out, and you might have to work a little bit with this until you get it. And then once I know everything is nice and snug, what I will do now is I'm going to use some of this very thin ribbon, and I like it because it's still decorative. It's got that kind of fancy thing to it. I know some people use wires. I don't really like using too much of the wire, so that's why I use the ribbon. And I'm going to just tie this, and this takes some practice. It wasn't this easy when I first started making baskets, but it's gotten easier. And so I'm just going to tie this up, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to make it look neater. So I'm going to do it once and then tie it again here. And the nice thing is that with this type of ribbon, you could always cut it. You can swirl it, but we'll talk about that later. And so right now I've got all of this over my basket. I've got my two ends sticking out at the sides. And so what I'm going to do is we got to hide this. That doesn't look good. So I'm going to kind of tuck this in. Just tucking it in. And I've got a little piece sticking out there. And now I'm just using some, like a larger tape. It's very strong. And I'm going to pull my basket to me just a little bit. And what I'm going to do with this tape is once I'm feeling good about having that tucked in and it looks pretty neat, I'm just taking one piece of tape and right underneath here, I'm just tucking it in. And that's it. So you got one side of your basket already done. And that's not a large piece of tape at all. Taking a small piece of tape, not a whole lot. Clear tape, of course, because you don't want it to show in your basket. So I'm just tucking this in. And I'm pulling it down, and the reason why I'm pulling it down is because I want this to be tighter on the sides. And then I'm going to take my tape, I'm pulling this over to me a little bit more. And when I'm happy with the way this looks, I'm going to pull it down, putting my tape right here at the bottom, and I'm just lifting gently and tucking that tape under. And so now everything is inside the basket. You got your cellophane, and now we got to do something with this. Once I have everything snugly in there, I'm kind of looking at everything, it looks good. I'm going to just make sure that all of this is pulled out. And I'm just going to roll it up like this for a minute. And that one, of course, that's too long. And I'm just going to cut a V. Okay, and you don't have to be perfect. And then, so I have this much left on it. And I like to kind of look at it first. It looks pretty good. I think I can cut it off just a little bit more. I'm going to cut it down a little bit more. Better to cut less than more off that top. And then we could always work it down. So now it's kind of fanning out. Looks good. And you notice now it looks like it has a lot of jagged edges and it looks decorative. Now we're going to move on to the bow. So now you have your basket. It doesn't have a bow on it yet. Sometimes in the stores I'll see some of the baskets and they'll stop right here and charge you a bunch of money for a basket that doesn't even have a bow on it. And to me, it doesn't really look good. So I think the bow just it's like the icing on the cake. It finishes everything off. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start our bow. And I decided a while ago, I didn't just want to do just any bow. I wanted to make it unique and I wanted to make it colorful. And I normally, most of my baskets, I usually like to use the wired ribbon because the wired ribbon, of course, you can shape it and mold it the way you want to. It folds. If you fold it, it's going to stay like that. This particular one, I love the colors in it. It's got the pink and it's very feminine. It's got the purples in there too and the white. And then I've got a sheer wired ribbon that I'm going to use also in pink, and it complements, of course, the main bow, what I'll call the main bow. And then I've got a green that kind of offsets that too. So this is where I really work in the color. So let's get started with our bow. So for this bow, I'm going to start with the somewhat sheer ribbon, and I'm going to start folding it and making loops actually. And because this is a larger basket, I tend to size the ribbons that I make or the bows that I make depending on the size of the basket. So you don't want the bow to be too overwhelming, but this seems to be somewhat of a larger basket. So what I'm going to do is make the bows a little bit larger. So I'm going to start looping it. And I'm going to use this entire spool of ribbon because I want this to look really nice. And the ribbon is going to give your basket more pop, or your bow, I should say. So let's start looping. And then I'm going to just pinch it like that. So that looks like a pretty good size loop. And if you think it's too big, you can kind of rework it and make it smaller, adjust it accordingly. So I just left a little bit out because I'm not going to really use the rest of that particular ribbon. And so I'm just making my loops now. And I want my loops to be somewhat even. And I'm doing it right from the spool, so I'm not really going to know how big this ribbon is going to be, but I want to make sure I have enough loops on both sides, an even amount on both sides. So I got 2 on one side, 2 on the other. And they have machines for making bows. I just kind of like to hand make my bows. I think they come out just as good. With practice, of course. So I'm looping again and pinching right in the middle. I love making bows for baskets. Didn't really know how to make a bow, and I got one of those machines called a bow dabber, and I was like, well, you know what, I could actually make this on my own. And so I've made, even though I have a bow dabber machine, I just choose to make my own bows. So let's count the amount that we have. 1, 2, 3, 4 loops on that side, 1, 2, 3, 4 loops on this side. And since I have more ribbon, I'm just going to keep going and pinching right in the middle. It's so pretty, it looks like a flower. And I get bows from different places. Like if I'm in a craft store or even in the dollar stores, they have bows for really economical prices. So you can be as fancy and expensive if you want to do all of that, but you can also be very economical in creating your basket. So just kind of trying to keep up so I don't lose count of how many loops I'm making. 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so it's still even. And it's already forming. I could tell it's going to look really good when I attach it to my basket. Kind of looks like a bouquet almost. Looks very feminine. And I think she's going to like it. And sometimes you could I like mixing colors with the bows, so I'm going to show you how to mix colors because we're using, of course, multicolored bows versus some of the plain sheer bows like this one. But you notice now with that wire, I love the wired bows because the wired ribbon, because you could actually shape it the way you want to, and it holds its shape. This one's going to be pretty big, so let's see how much we got left on here. I think I'm going to end right about there. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave a little bit on the end and kind of cut that off. Do that with one hand. And then I'm going to take some of that ribbon again, the thin ribbon, and I'm going to tie my bow in the middle. And it's still holding its shape. So now I could actually, I'm just going to tie it once. It doesn't really, if you want to tie another loop, you can, but for this, you don't really need to do that. And so I'm shaping it again. And so we've got one bow that's complete, and we're going to move on to the next one. I'm going to start with the green now. So now I'm going to make a third bow, and I'm making it larger than the other two bows that I made, so the loops are going to be larger. So it's the same folding process, and you're probably wondering, why am I using 3 bows on that basket? And you'll see why. It's going to look really nice. So we'll speed up the process so you don't have to go through this whole folding the loops with me. So now we have 3 bows, and if you notice, the one with all the color in it is larger than the other 2 bows. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this green bow and I'm going to put it in the center of here, and then I'm going to attach it to the basket. So it may seem like it's a lot to do, but it really gives your basket a nicer and much more elegant presentation. So let's go ahead and try to attach these to our basket. So now you notice that on this particular bow, I do have some ribbon left that I tied it with. I'm going to take that same ribbon now, and I'm going to attach my bow right here in the center. So now I'm bringing my bow around the two stems of that ribbon, and I'm just tying it in the back. And the reason why I use this ribbon is because it looks nice, and it can be part of your larger bow, and I can keep attaching more and more bows with this same ribbon. So that's the first bow, having it attached. So let's go around to the front so you can see what it looks like right now. We have our first bow attached, and that's what it looks like. So I've got the larger colorful bow in the back, and in the front I'm going to take the green bow and put it right in the center. So a bow can really make a basket and add a lot of uniqueness to the basket. All I'm doing is kind of wedging it in between my bow, and you really can't see it. And then I'm going to take this and tuck it right around where that fan meets the handle again. And I'm going to tie it. Maybe I'll just tie it twice this time, just to keep it nice and secure. So now we have two bows attached, and now if you see, I've got the larger bow in the back, the smaller bow in the front, and here's the beauty of using the wired ribbon, is that I can shape it and go back and neaten it up a little bit however I want, but it looks pretty good. Actually looks great. And so now my basket has a little bit more pop, and now we've got to get that third ribbon. So if you look at the back now, look at that. I don't like the way that looks. So what I'm going to do, we're going to attach the third ribbon. Most people would stop with just the front of the basket. A lot of stores, when I look at their displays of baskets, they'll just have maybe one bow. I don't normally see them do two bows. So what I like to do is I want it to be an all-around presentation. When that person sees this basket, I want them to know that time and effort was put into the basket, and I want it to just, the person to just stand there in awe of them getting such a beautiful gift. So what I like to do is I also like to decorate the back of the basket. And you don't have to do this, but for me, I just like to do it. And you can just put one on the front and one on the back also. You don't have to do three bows like I'm doing here. So you can get as elaborate as you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our pink ribbon, and the colors tie in very nicely. And I am going to attach it, and I'll probably have to go back and neaten it up again. And what I'm doing is, all I'm doing is bringing my thin ribbon around the bottom part of this basket, and I'm just tying it right underneath, and it camouflages. You can't even see it. And it's on there snug. And what I want to do is I'm going to put another knot in there, and I could always go back. I'm going to go back and look at it, neaten it up a little bit. And there's my other knot. And I can go back and I could roll up the ribbon, but we'll take a look at it first before I decide what I'm going to do with that. So this is the back part of the basket, and let me take a look at it. Might need to go ahead and neaten up that wired ribbon again. Neaten up my bow, fluff it out a bit. And so my basket is going to look good from whatever angle. I absolutely love doing this, especially if you're someone that's very crafty. You can experiment with different bows, different textures. It doesn't have to be the wired ribbon. I just like to use it because it just forms much more easily. You can shape it however you want. And imagine, now that's the back side of the ribbon, still playing off the colors on the front, the multicolored ribbon. And so there you have it. And we also have all of these hanging. So sometimes what I like to do with that ribbon that's hanging in the front or in the back is I like to kind of curl it up. So all I do is, take your scissor and roll it up, and it still looks fancy. That's all that extra ribbon. Or you can just cut it off if you want. You can cut it up close to this area here so it doesn't hang at all. So it just depends on what you want to do with it. This one I'm going to cut a little bit. And then I'm going to roll it up just a little bit. And you got all these little cute swirly ribbons, and it looks nice and festive. There's another one right here. So you can do that. You don't have to do that. I just like to have it, like, use everything that I have on that ribbon. And use the ribbon. It's kind of multi-purpose ribbon, that thin ribbon. I really like it. And you can use different colors if you want. If I wanted to, I could have used the pink and the green also. But the white looks just as nice. And so there you have it. That's the back part of your basket. And if you wanted, you can, if you think your ribbon is too long, the thinner ribbon, you can just kind of cut it off, make it shorter if you want. And then I'm going to just turn it around so you can see the other side. And who would not love something like that? If you want to get really fancy, again, as if you can't get any fancier, you can take your ribbon and tie certain things onto it. So sometimes I know when people do like baby baskets, they'll tie like a little pacifier onto the ribbon. Or you can have something like an ornament dangling from it too. And you can just use this ribbon to dangle some of those things. So you can actually attach other things using this ribbon. And so you have like a whole, the ribbon becomes a piece of art basically. But that's if you want to get even fancy, just another idea. Also, a lot of my baskets, I like to put flowers coming up out of the top. For this basket, I think that we already have enough and we do not need to attach flowers, but sometimes I'll put flowers sticking in the top of the basket. So like these, they go with our colors. And if I wanted to, I could actually have like almost like a little bouquet sticking out the top. I just open up my fan and just kind of wedge that in there. And so I'll have flowers coming out of the top of the basket. So that's just another idea. You can just push them right through the center and they'll fit snugly in there. So that's just another accent that you can do with your basket. So I might leave it in there, I might not. I'd have to work with this a little bit more. But it looks pretty good actually. So maybe I'll leave it in there. So it's almost like having a bouquet basket. I don't remember when I came up with that idea, but I've been using it ever since. Most of the baskets that I do put flowers, artificial flowers of different colors that accent the ribbon inside of the front part of the basket. So I'm going to turn this around. Our basket is finished. That's the back part of the basket, believe it or not. And this is the front part of the basket. And who would not want to receive a gift like this? So I hope that you did learn something here. Baskets can be very unique. They can be very personal. You can do baskets for parents, teachers. They make really great teacher gifts, especially if you get everyone to kind of contribute to the basket, like all the parents. A gift for a coach. They can be small, they can be large. You can even make baskets out of a cup. So that might be a future video, how to make a cup into a basket. But this is just absolutely beautiful. Sometimes I have no idea what the basket is going to look like when I start it, but I'm pretty happy with the way this one turned out. And I hope you learned a lot here. And if you would like, leave some comments, some ideas, and let me know what types of baskets you would like to see more of, or if you want to do some things with bows also, leave some comments. Post your video if you've made a basket and you'd like to show me what you've made, or if you just need some ideas. So thanks for tuning in. Bye.